Omaha, Nebraska, the birthplace of a man who will one day dominate the sport of boxing.
The reigning, defending, undefeated champion of the world.
You know what's scarier than getting knocked out by Terence Crawford? It's what happens 6 months later when you realize you're still fighting, like you're waiting for him to switch stances. See, most fighters beat you and move on. Crawford?
Terence Crawford right now is the best fighter that I have seen in recent years, in past years. He's a throwback fighter.
He reprograms you. He breaks something in your operating system that your corner can't fix with a pep talk and a cold towel.
Oh, Crawford gets him!
One of the best finishers in boxing.
And Crawford just nails him! That man is the best in the world!
Tonight we're doing the full autopsy on the Crawford effect. We're tracking 6 elite fighters, world champions, undefeated prospects, pound-for-pound threats.
In charge, Harley Duff stops the contest. He is the winner by way of technical knockout. He is still undefeated. And now, the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, Terence.
And we're watching what they looked like before they met Bud versus what they became after. And I'm not talking about their records, I'm talking about the confidence leak, the hesitation that wasn't there before, the style adjustments they never wanted to make but had to because Crawford exposed something fundamental that every future opponent circled in red pen. Stick around to the end because the final case file is absolutely bonkers. A living legend walks in with all the belts, walks out into retirement, and Crawford walks into the history books, undefeated and undisputed in 3 weight classes.
He drops him on his nose, and Kenny Baylor doesn't bother to count. He's knocked out.
This isn't a highlight reel. This is a psychological horror story told through punch stats and career trajectories. Let's get surgical. Alright, quick framework so you understand what we're actually tracking here. Every case file gets broken down through 3 lenses. Momentum. Where was their career headed before Crawford? Were they rising, peaking, or already in denial about the decline? Damage. And I don't mean cuts and swelling, I mean the tactical flaws Crawford exposes, the habits he tattoos onto your film study so every future opponent knows exactly where you leak. Identity shift. Did they come out the same fighter, or did Crawford fundamentally reprogram how they see themselves in that ring? Because here's the thing about Bud that separates him from other elite fighters. He doesn't just beat you on the cards, he solves you like a Rubik's Cube. And once you've been solved, good luck scrambling yourself back together. Some fighters adapt, some reinvent, but nobody, and I mean nobody, leaves the same. Let's start in Glasgow with a world champion defending his title on home soil. Before Terence Crawford showed up in Scotland, Ricky Burns wasn't some tomato can the commission rolled out for target practice. This was March 2014. Burns was the WBO lightweight champion, defending in Glasgow in front of his people. The kind of crowd that turns a boxing ring into a hostile environment where every borderline call goes to the local hero. Burns had been a world champion for years at this point. He'd defended that title multiple times. He had the experience advantage, the home cooking advantage, and the psychological advantage of making a 26-year-old American travel across the Atlantic to try and take his belt. On paper, this was supposed to be Crawford's welcome to world level moment. The fight where he either announces himself or gets sent back to the developmental league with a reality check. Burns was confident, his team was confident, Scotland was loud, and then the bell rang. Now, here's where it gets beautiful from a tactical standpoint. Crawford didn't come out guns blazing trying to make a statement. He came out like a scientist who brought a clipboard and some hypotheses to test. Round 1, Bud's in orthodox stance, just watching. He's letting Burns establish his jab, seeing how Burns moves.
Range at the moment, not committing himself quite right.
Clocking the distance Burns likes to work at. Round 2, Crawford starts feinting. Not even throwing yet, just feinting. Watching how Burns reacts. Does he pull straight back? Does he pivot? Does he shell up? Round 3. Now Crawford starts adjusting. He's slipping Burns' jab to the outside and stepping to angles Burns isn't comfortable at. Every time Burns tries to set his feet behind that jab, Crawford's already repositioned, and this is where the Crawford effect starts showing up early. Burns begins having to think about distance instead of just working. His jab isn't landing clean anymore. His timing's off by half a second. By round 5, you can see it on Burns' face. Not panic, but that look fighters get when they realize, I'm doing everything my corner told me to do, and it's not working. Crawford wasn't landing bombs, he was landing consistently. Jab, right hand, pivot. Jab, right hand, pivot, making Burns fight the same sequence over and over while Burns couldn't figure out how to break the pattern. Round 7, Crawford switches to southpaw mid-round just to see what happens. Burns' whole rhythm falls apart. Suddenly the angles are wrong, the distance is different, and Burns is back to square one trying to figure out the puzzle. The commentators are trying to make it sound competitive, but if you're watching the body language...
Crawford, and Burns is hurt again. Switching to the body. Burns covering up, but there's enough getting through here.
It's already over. Burns is fighting to survive rounds. Crawford's fighting like he's getting paid by the hour and doesn't mind the overtime. By round 10, Burns looks exhausted, not from taking damage, but from problem solving for 30 minutes straight and never finding an answer. Final bell rings. Unanimous decision, not even close on the cards. Crawford takes the belt, waves to the Scottish crowd like he's a tourist who just enjoyed the local cuisine, and walks out a world champion. So what happened to Ricky Burns after that night? He kept fighting, had a respectable career, even won another world title later. But that championship level confidence, that I'm one of the best in the world energy, it faded, man, because here's what Crawford took from Burns. The belief that his best night was enough to compete with the elite of the elite. Burns had home advantage, experience, championship pedigree, crowd support, every edge you could want. And Crawford walked into that environment and made it look easy. That's the kind of loss that doesn't just go on your record. It goes in your head. Every time you're in a big fight after that, there's a voice asking, but what if they're like Crawford? Burns never looked the same against top-tier competition again. That's case file 1. A world champion systematically outclassed in his own backyard. Let's jump forward 2 years to a unification fight with a guy who had just derailed a hype train. Before Viktor Postol met Crawford, he had a reputation. This was 2016. Postol was the WBC light welterweight champion. Tall, long, technical, disciplined. The kind of Eastern European boxer who fights like he's following an instruction manual written in a language only he can read. But here's what gave Postol credibility. He had just absolutely dismantled Lucas Mathesi. Mathesi was supposed to be the next Argentine destroyer. Power puncher, fan-friendly, the kind of guy highlight channels love because something violent is always about to happen. Postol boxed his face off, made Mathesi look slow, predictable, hittable, took his belt, took his momentum, sent the hype train straight into a brick wall. So when the Crawford-Postol unification was announced, people paid attention. This wasn't a tune-up, this was a legitimate test of whether Crawford could handle a fighter with size, reach, discipline, and a proven ability to shut down aggressive opponents. Postol was confident. His team was talking about how Crawford had never faced someone with his length and discipline. The boxing media was split. Some picked Crawford, some picked Postol, and everyone agreed this would tell us something definitive about where Bud ranked in the division. Then July 23rd, 2016 happened at the MGM Grand. Round 1 starts, and immediately you can see Postol's game plan. Stay long, work behind the jab, control distance, don't let Crawford get comfortable. Solid plan, reasonable strategy. Crawford said, cool, let me show you what happens when distance becomes a suggestion. Round 1, Bud's in orthodox, just measuring, letting Postol work, seeing the patterns. Round 2, Crawford starts stepping into Postol's jab range instead of away from it. Postol's used to guys respecting that jab and staying outside. Crawford's slipping it and closing distance before Postol can reset. Round 3, here's where it gets disrespectful. Crawford switches to southpaw mid combination. Throws a jab from orthodox, switches, throws a left hand from southpaw, switches back. Postol's whole sense of distance just evaporates. His jab that was landing clean 2 rounds ago, now it's hitting air because Crawford's stance switching is making Postol's depth perception malfunction. Round 4 and 5. Crawford is comfortable now. He's walking Postol down. The guy who's supposed to control distance with that long jab is now getting backed up by a shorter fighter who's switching stances so often.
Right. You're blowing it, champ. You're blowing it.
Smiling, laughing, sticking his tongue out at Postol.
Postol doesn't know which guard to keep high. The commentators are calling it chess boxing. It's not chess. It's Crawford playing checkers against someone who thinks they're playing chess and realizing too late the rules changed. Round 5. Here's where Crawford makes his statement. First knockdown. Right at the opening bell of round 5, Crawford lands a straight right hand. Postol stumbles. His knee touches the canvas. Whether it was the punch or the slippery canvas doesn't matter to referee Tony Weeks. Knee down equals knockdown. Postol gets up and Crawford goes right back to work. Second knockdown. Less than a minute later, Crawford lands a heavy left hook to the body that sends Postol stumbling backward. Crawford follows with a right hand, and Postol's glove touches down. 2 knockdowns in 1 round. The first 2 knockdowns of Postol's entire professional career. The crowd erupts. This is the moment Crawford takes complete control. Round 6 through 9, Postol's forced to press now because of those 2 counts, but his upright stance and one-dimensional movement make him a sitting target for Crawford's counters. Crawford's landing clean, switching stances, making Postol look ordinary. By round 9, Crawford hurts Postol with a flurry of awkward punches. Postol's not just losing, he's getting schooled. Round 10 and 11, Postol's trying everything. Nothing works. In round 11, Postol gets so desperate he starts hitting Crawford around the back of the head and clinches. The referee warns him, then deducts a point. Crawford just smiles, takes a breather, and comes back with another classy combination. Round 12, Postol survives to the final bell, but that's all he does. Survive. Crawford's landing clean, switching stances, making Postol's best attributes, length, discipline, patience, look like liabilities. The final bell rings. Unanimous decision, not even controversial. Crawford walks out undisputed at 140 pounds. Postol walks out having learned a very expensive lesson about levels. So what happened to Viktor Postol after Crawford? He kept fighting, beat some decent names, made some money, but that I can beat anyone in the division energy? Gone. Because Crawford didn't just beat Postol, he made Postol's best attributes look ordinary. The disciplined jab, neutralized. The length advantage, meaningless. The patient, technical approach, turned into passivity. Every future opponent who studied that fight knew, oh, Postol's hittable. If you pressure him, he gets uncomfortable when you switch stances. He doesn't handle aggressive fighters who can box. That's the Crawford effect in action. He doesn't just beat you, he creates a blueprint for everyone else. Postol never competed at that elite championship level again, and somewhere in the back of his mind, he probably still wonders, what if I'd been more aggressive? What if I hadn't respected Crawford's power so much? But that's the thing about Crawford. He makes you respect things mid-fight you didn't plan on respecting. And by the time you realize it, the fight's over. That's 2 case files down. Let's get to the brutal one. Julius Indongo before Crawford was a problem. August 2017. Indongo was undefeated. 22-0. He was holding 3 of the 4 major belts at 140 pounds. IBF, WBA, and IBO champion. But here's what made Indongo dangerous. He was awkward, tall, rangy, unorthodox style, weird timing. The kind of fighter who gives elite opponents fits because nothing looks textbook. Indongo had just beaten Edward Troyanovsky and Ricky Burns. Yeah, Burns again, this sport is cruel, to collect those belts. He wasn't just undefeated, he looked untouchable in a specific unconventional way. When the Crawford-Indongo unification was announced, this was supposed to be the stylistic puzzle, the fighter whose awkwardness could throw Crawford off his game. The rangy southpaw with weird timing who could keep Crawford at distance and make him uncomfortable. People were calling it the toughest test of Crawford's career. It was not. Round 1, Crawford comes out in orthodox. He's watching, letting Indongo do his thing. Indongo's throwing long, looping punches from weird angles. Crawford's slipping, catching them on his gloves, studying. You can literally see Crawford's brain working. Okay, you throw that long right from this angle. You drop your left when you jab. Your feet are wide when you reset. Round 2, Crawford starts adjusting. He's timing Indongo's punches now. Every time Indongo throws that long right, Crawford's slipping it and countering. Every time Indongo tries to establish his jab, Crawford's feinting and making him miss. Indongo's awkwardness that worked against other fighters, Crawford's reading it like a children's book. Round 3. Crawford decides this fight is over. He switches to southpaw, closes distance, and lands a body shot that folds Julius Indongo like someone just canceled his gym membership. I'm talking about a liver shot so clean you could hear it through the TV. Indongo's face goes from "I'm fighting for a title" to "I've made a terrible mistake" in 0.3 seconds. He goes down, the crowd gasps. Indongo's on one knee, and you can see it in his eyes. He doesn't want to get up. His body's sending urgent messages like, "Stay down, we're good here, this is fine." But he's a champion, so he gets up. The ref asks if he's okay. Indongo nods, but it's the nod of a man lying to himself. Crawford comes right back with hooks to the body, straight right hands, combinations that sound like someone's cracking walnuts with a hammer. Indongo's trying to survive, but Crawford's in closer mode. When Bud decides you don't belong in the ring, he doesn't drag it out for drama. He ends the conversation. Another combination, left hook to the body, right hand upstairs, left hook to the head, and the ref jumps in. TKO, third round. Crawford walks out undisputed at 140 pounds. All 4 belts. Indongo walks out with the kind of loss that changes your Wikipedia page from undefeated prospect to former champion. What happened to Julius Indongo after Crawford? Short version, the invincible aura died in 3 rounds. Long version, Indongo fought a few more times, but the belief was gone. The mystique was shattered. Every future opponent watched that tape and saw the same thing. Oh, he's hittable to the body. He's stoppable. He's not this unbeatable puzzle. That's the Crawford effect at its coldest. When Bud stops you early, he doesn't just take your undefeated record. He takes the fear opponents had of facing you. Indongo's awkward style that used to cause problems. Now fighters knew how to time it, how to get inside it, how to break him down, and somewhere in the back of Indongo's mind, every time he stepped in the ring after that, there was probably a voice asking, what if they catch me like Crawford did? That's 3 case files. Now let's talk about a comeback story that became a cautionary tale. Before facing Crawford, Jose Benavidez Jr. had one hell of a story. This was October 2018. Benavidez had been shot, like literally shot in the leg in 2016. Doctors weren't sure he'd walk normally again, let alone fight professionally, but Benavidez rehabbed, came back, and rattled off some wins. He wasn't just fighting, he was winning, and people started paying attention to the narrative. The kid who survived a gunshot wound and worked his way back into title contention. This was supposed to be his moment. The "I'm still here, I'm still dangerous" fight that turns into a career-defining win. Benavidez was undefeated, 27-0. He had power, he had size, he had momentum, and he had that underdog comeback energy that makes people root for you. Crawford was the A-side, the favorite, the guy who'd already unified at 140 and moved up to 147, but Benavidez's team was talking confidence. They thought they could pressure Crawford, make him uncomfortable, maybe even catch him. It was a feel-good story walking into a buzzsaw wearing sneakers. Round 1, Benavidez comes out aggressive. He's pressing forward, throwing combinations, trying to make Crawford fight, going backward. And for a second, it's working. Crawford's giving ground, Benavidez is landing, and people watching are thinking, okay, maybe this is competitive. Round 2 through 6, Benavidez is still pressing, landing jabs, landing right hands, making Crawford work. But here's what the casual viewer doesn't see. Crawford's not losing these rounds out of panic. He's studying. Every jab Benavidez throws, Crawford's cataloging the setup. Every right hand Benavidez loads up on, Crawford's timing the telegraph. Benavidez thinks he's winning rounds. Crawford thinks he's collecting data. Rounds 7 and 8, Crawford starts making small adjustments. He's countering Benavidez's jab with a right hand. He's slipping Benavidez's right hand and landing hooks to the body. Benavidez is still pressing, but the momentum's shifting. Crawford's walking him down now. The hunter's becoming the hunted. Round 9 through 11, Crawford is comfortable. He's landing clean counters. Benavidez's face is starting to show wear. His legs aren't as fresh. His output's dropping because every time he throws, Crawford's making him pay. The commentators are calling it a close fight. It's not close. It's Crawford building to a conclusion. Round 12. The final round. Crawford decides it's time to make a statement. He starts walking Benavidez down like a man who's bored of the sparring session. Benavidez is trying to survive, but Crawford's landing clean. Right hands, left hooks, body shots that make Benavidez wince. Then Crawford lands a combination so surgical it looked like he'd been practicing it in the mirror for 6 months. Right hand to the body, left hook upstairs, right hand straight down the pipe. Benavidez's legs betray him. He's not knocked out, but he's gone. The ref sees it and jumps in. TKO, 12th round. Crawford wins. Here's what makes this finish brutal. Benavidez was competitive. He had moments. He won rounds. But Crawford's 12th round stoppage erased all of that, because when people remember that fight, they don't remember the early rounds where Benavidez was pressing and landing. They remember Crawford walking him down in the final round like a horror movie villain who'd been playing with his food. After that fight, Benavidez's comeback story became a what could have been story. He fought once more after, then stepped away from boxing. The momentum was gone. The belief was cracked, and the narrative shifted from inspiring comeback to he gave it his all, but Crawford was just too good. That's the Crawford effect in its patient form. He doesn't need to knock you out early. He'll let you have your moments, collect his information, and then close the show when he's ready. And when he does, all your good work evaporates. That's 4 case files. Now let's talk about the big one, the one that had the whole sport holding its breath. Before Terence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. was the guy at welterweight. July 29, 2023. Spence was undefeated, 28-0. He held 3 of the 4 major belts at 147. He was a volume puncher, a pressure fighter, a guy who broke opponents by making them fight his fight in deep water. This wasn't just a championship fight, this was a generational fight, the kind of matchup people argue about in YouTube comments at 2 a.m. for years. Fans begged for this fight. Crawford and Spence were the 2 best welterweights on the planet, and they were on different networks, different promotional companies, circling each other while everyone screamed, "Just fight already." When it finally got made, the buildup was insane. Spence's fans believed he'd drown Crawford with volume and pressure. Crawford's fans believed Bud's skill and IQ would crack the code. The media was split. Experts couldn't agree. This was supposed to be a war, a back and forth, dramatic, instant classic type of war. Then the bell rang, and it wasn't a war. It was a breakdown. Round 1, Crawford comes out in orthodox. Spence is pressing, trying to establish his jab, trying to get Crawford on the back foot. Crawford's just watching, letting Spence work, feeling out the distance, the timing, the rhythm. Round 2, Crawford switches to Southpaw mid-round, just casually flips stances like he's changing the radio station, and you can see Spence hesitate. That split second of wait, which stance is he in, costs him. Crawford lands a clean right hand from Southpaw that snaps Spence's head back.
Bud Crawford, an electrifying combination that drops Errol Spence in round 2.
The crowd gasps. That wasn't supposed to happen this early. Round 3. Crawford's comfortable now. He's landing clean right hands from Southpaw. He's making Spence miss and countering. He's fighting like a guy who's 3 steps ahead of every adjustment. Spence is still pressing, but the confidence is cracking. You can see it in his body language. He's used to imposing his will, dictating the pace. Crawford's not letting him. Round 4 and 5. Crawford starts taking the center of the ring. Let me repeat that. Errol Spence Jr., the pressure fighter, the guy who walks people down and drowns them in volume, is getting pushed backward. Crawford's controlling distance, controlling tempo, and every time Spence tries to let his hands go, Bud's already pivoted out of danger. Round 6. Spence is trying everything. He's doubling the jab, he's throwing hooks to the body, he's trying to rough Crawford up on the inside. Nothing's working. Crawford's slipping, countering, making Spence look ordinary. Round 7. Crawford lands a perfect right uppercut left hook combination from Southpaw. Spence goes down. The T-Mobile Arena erupts. This isn't supposed to happen. Spence doesn't get dropped. Spence gets up, but you can see it. The aura's cracking. The confidence is leaking.
Won the first round on his unofficial scorecard, but again, and again, the counter! Just as Spence thought he landed a shot, he goes down for the second time in the fight!
Round 8, Crawford's hunting now. He's not headhunting for a knockout, but he's breaking Spence down systematically. Body shots, straight rights, hooks to the head. Spence's corner is yelling instructions, but Spence looks confused, like he can't figure out the puzzle and time's running out. Round 9, Crawford drops Spence again with a beautiful counter right hand. Spence gets up, but he's gone. His legs are compromised. His guard's dropping. The ref looks at him and waves it off. TKO, 9th round. Crawford walks out undisputed at welterweight, all 4 belts, and Errol Spence Jr. walks out with a shattered aura. Here's what makes this loss devastating. Errol Spence Jr. wasn't just beaten, he was exposed. The volume punching that was supposed to drown Crawford? Neutralized? The pressure fighting that was supposed to break Bud down? Reversed. The undefeated record that made Spence the truth? shattered in 9 rounds. After that fight, Spence triggered his rematch clause, but the rematch never happened, because deep down, and I mean deep down where fighters don't talk about publicly, everyone knew it wouldn't be different. Crawford had solved Spence, and once Bud solves you, there's no running it back that changes the equation. Spence eventually moved up to 154 pounds, but the aura was gone, the mystique was shattered, the confidence that made him the truth became the doubt that made him the guy who got stopped by Crawford. That's the Crawford effect at its most devastating. Not just winning, rewriting the narrative in real time, but we've got one more case file, and this one's the craziest. Before Terence Crawford moved up to super middleweight, Canelo Alvarez wasn't just a champion, he was an institution. Undisputed super middleweight champion, multiple division champion, the biggest pay-per-view draw in boxing, the kind of resume that makes people speak in eras. Canelo had beaten everyone. Golovkin twice. Bivol, okay, he lost that one. Plant, Saunders, Kovalev. The man had been collecting belts like infinity stones. When Crawford announced he was moving up to 168 to challenge Canelo, people thought he'd lost his mind. Bud's too small, Canelo's too strong. Crawford's a great welterweight, but super middleweight is a bridge too far. This is where the Crawford hype train derails. Even Crawford's fans were nervous. This was supposed to be the fight where we all learned that greatness has limits. Then September 13th, 2025 happened in Las Vegas. Round 1, Crawford comes out in Southpaw. Canelo's stalking, trying to cut off the ring, trying to establish his jab. Crawford's moving, not running, but flowing, making Canelo chase angles. Round 2, Canelo lands a solid body shot, the kind that's supposed to let a smaller fighter know you don't belong at this weight. Crawford takes it, nods, and fires back with a 3-punch combination that makes Canelo blink. The crowd's buzzing. This isn't supposed to be competitive. Round 3 and 4, Crawford's boxing. Pure, beautiful boxing. He's slipping Canelo's power shots by millimeters. He's countering Canelo's jab with straight lefts from Southpaw. He's making one of the best pressure fighters in the sport look slow. Canelo's trying to walk Crawford down, but every time he gets close, Crawford pivots.
Had Joe Louis beat for the heavyweight title, went for
something big before it's over, but Crawford won't allow it. He's getting the respect.
Resets and makes Canelo start over. Round 5 through 8. Crawford switches to orthodox mid-fight just to flex. Canelo adjusts. Crawford switches back to southpaw. The commentators are running out of adjectives. This isn't just competitive. Crawford's winning. Round 9 and 10. Canelo's trying everything. He's doubling the jab, throwing bombs to the body, trying to rough Crawford up on the inside. Crawford's just cleaner. Every exchange, Crawford's landing the sharper punch. Every round, Crawford's making Canelo work harder for less return. Round 11, Crawford lands a counter right hand from southpaw that makes Canelo's legs wobble for a split second. The crowd gasps. Did Crawford just hurt Canelo at 168 pounds? Round 12, both guys know where they stand. Canelo empties the tank, trying to close strong. Crawford boxes, moves, counters, and makes it look easy. Final bell rings. The judges' scorecards: 116 to 112, 115 to 113, 116 to 112. Unanimous decision for Crawford. Terence Crawford is now undisputed at super middleweight, and then he does something nobody expected. He announces his retirement. 42-0, undefeated, undisputed in 3 weight classes, walking away at the absolute top. What happened to Canelo after that fight? He had to rebuild, not his skills, not his resume, but his mystique. Because Canelo Alvarez, the face of boxing, the guy who'd been the guy for years, just lost a clear decision to a fighter moving up 2 weight classes. That's not a controversial decision. That's not a bad night. That's getting outboxed by a naturally smaller fighter who made your power advantage irrelevant. Canelo's still a legend, still one of the greats. But after September 13th, 2025, there's always going to be an asterisk. Yeah, but Crawford beat him. And for Crawford, he walked into the sunset as one of the greatest to ever do it. 42-0, undisputed in 3 weight classes, retired undefeated. That's not just a win, that's a legacy-defining moment. So what does Terence Crawford actually take from his opponents? He takes your comfort, he takes your timing, he takes your belief that your best night is enough. Some fighters bounce back, some reinvent themselves, but nobody leaves the same. Because when you fight a problem solver, a guy who can switch stances mid-fight, adjust on the fly and make you look predictable even when you're doing everything right. You don't just lose a fight, you get exposed in a way the entire sport studies. Every future opponent watches that tape. Every trainer breaks down your habits. Every time you step back in that ring, there's a voice in the back of your head asking, what if I run into another Crawford? That's the Crawford effect, not just winning fights, changing careers. If you love breakdowns that teach while they entertain, tactics, psychology, career timelines, legacy deep dives, hit that subscribe button right now. This is Knockout Kings Elite, where we break down the real science behind elite boxing, MMA, and combat sports. Drop a comment. Which before and after shocked you the most? Was it Indongo getting stopped in 3, Spence getting his aura shattered, or Canelo getting outboxed by a smaller man? And if you want the next deep dive, we're breaking down Crawford's stance switch traps, the exact patterns and setups that make elite fighters freeze mid-combination. This is Knockout Kings Elite. The smarter you watch, the better you understand. Let's go.